to be 25, and I went to his show and sort of liked it, and we started talking. And I told him about this course, and he told me that he was trying to get funding for albums. So we agreed that if he would become part of the course and do a song about the course, a video of the song, that I would help support his album. So that's how this came about. And as you watch it, you realize 2012 was kind of a long time ago. But anyway, this was the way the course looked at the time.
Here it comes, coming at you very soon.
So that's Joel and that's me. That's the Dean of Science at the time.
I've got a half-life ticking and EKG readings that are beating the shore to dust. I've got a smartphone crystal ball, touchscreen and all, but the screen won't touch. And it's this analog melody stuck in my head, and it's driving me insane, cause I got this chronic condition that'll suffer no remission, and I'm feeling that I ain't got time. Oh yeah, yeah. Show me an android heart, an AI mind, and a spirit
It's
in
the
flesh.
Dean of Arts.
Show me an optimistic and futuristic prognosis and what it means. Help me to see the future between the sutures. Will it be good or bad, or will we recognize a thing when we all pull the pin? Will it resemble what we had? It's a singularity. Yeah, it's a singularity. Beyond event horizon, will we wisen up or find a kind of glory? What's the story of the singularity?
What you hear is not a test, it's a singularity. A risk thing, isn't it? To envision it, or does the future look rather dissonant? Robot style, but what about later? Will it be like Terminator? Or are we headed for utopia? Well, follow me and I'll show ya.
Voices from every field across the world are coming to ya. Attend the class or watch from home, it's coming to ya. Kim Solez has the contacts and he's bringing them to ya. It's coming to ya, the future's coming to ya. So come to the future.
Technology and the future of medicine. LABMP 590.
Yeah, okay. So you can watch that as many times as you want or never again. What suits you. Yeah. So let me see if I can get back to. Okay, so this presentation, so are you getting me and the thing? Yeah?
Yeah, I only get kind of half. Or
Okay,
maybe
well,
zoom out
you
a
know
little
how
bit?
the zoom at the top works? So zoom it back to where you're getting both.
Good, yeah, good.
Very good. See how complicated
Sorry.
it is? Now there'll be visual proof that you can do this thing. Yeah. The technological singularity explained and promoted. Yeah, so the objectives after the song, which you now heard, understand that one should not fear complexity. Do not seek the one great truth. There can be many truths and they can be true concurrently. Understand the three main schools of belief about the singularity. Understand the four main paths to the singularity. Both of those will be on the midterm, but remember the midterm only counts 20%, and we observe trends. So if you really do poorly on the midterm but ace at everything else, the midterm won't count very much in your case. So another part of the objectives, understand the history of the singularity and Marcus Hutter's main ideas about it. Understand the challenge of promoting the singularity, the idea behind Future Day and Longevity Day. Yeah. So do not fear complexity. There's beauty in complexity. Your significant other is complex. Nothing wrong with that. The real world is complex. Perfect quadruple think with equipoise. Did you know that equipoise is a uniquely Canadian name? And when you think about ethics, you always start talking about that. But if you were any other country, you wouldn't, because they never heard of equipoise. Seemingly contradictory ideas can all be true. You can find a balance between them. Future transplantation, for instance, is the promotion of xenotransplantation, like pig-to-human transplants, deceased donor donation till there are no waiting lists anymore, tolerance, tissue engineering, repair, and stem cell creation of new organs. As Peter Diamandis, the CEO of the X Prize and Singularity University, says, when faced with a choice between two desirable goals, choose both. Yeah. So we try to find a metaphor that would suit everybody taking this course. And this course is amazingly heterogeneous with lots of different people taking it, right? But we thought probably all of you, one way or the other, there was something about Alice in Wonderland. So in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, a world is confronted that is much more organic than expected. The croquet ball is alive, and the mallet is alive, and everything's alive. So you face a world exactly the opposite of that, where things are much less organic, perhaps, than expected, and a world that perhaps could exist without organic beings. Yeah, in the technological singularity, we face a world that's much less organic than expected and could develop without us. So the three main schools of belief about the singularity: accelerating change, event horizon, and intelligence explosion. So just cast your mind ahead to the midterm exam. It's like a page, as a blank space, says, what are the three main schools of belief about the singularity? And the incredible intellectual challenge for you then is to carry these ideas from today to whatever it is, March 19th, the date of the midterm exam, and put these in those spaces, yeah. Similarly, with the four main paths to the singularity: create an artificial intelligence that exceeds human intelligence, build human-computer interfaces that allow humans to go beyond their innate intelligence to a significant extent, that is cybernetic singularity, find ways in biology to improve upon natural human intellect, build large computer networks in which beyond human intelligence emerges. All these different variations on the belief in the singularity are reflected in the courses at Singularity University. The experience of attending Singularity University is one that grows and grows after completion of the course. If you think of many of your life experiences, even the educational ones, you take part in this educational event, and whatever you learned there immediately begins to fade. Within a short time, maybe there's hardly any of it left. Well, this was sort of different from that. In that 9-day period, I met amazing people that I've stayed in contact with, and that network just sort of grew and grew. And part of the reason that happened is the lack of goodness of fit. I was completely different from everybody else in the course. I was much older. I wasn't an entrepreneur. I wasn't a government official. I was a full-time academic, which none of them were. Yeah, and so it was kind of cool. If any of you think about conformity and believe today that conformity is really important, the more you conform, the more successful you'll be, you can look at me as an example of the opposite. A lot of the big things I've done where it's changed things are situations where I was the only person remotely like me in the entire room, right? Like the only physician, the only academic. So you know that I teach medical students, you can imagine what that's like. But after a while I got to thinking, well, you know, this is not enough somehow, because they're an elite group of young people, right? And if I just hang out with them, I'm missing something. So there was, between 2014 and 2019, Tuesday night poetry for at-risk youth here in the city of Edmonton. And so I became part of the infrastructure for that. I provided the video, the lighting, the sound system, and everything, and video editing. And you had like homeless young people who were going to the library and then collaborating with me in the editing of their poetry video and so on. What do you think I learned from that? The big lesson was, don't offer rides home. It's perfectly fine to like meet a group of people very different from you. But if you give one of them a ride home, everybody starts thinking about ways to do something that you don't really want done, right? So anyway, yeah. So I only did that once. One time, one of them asked me for a ride home, and I discovered a scarier part of this city that I never thought existed. So that's where that person lived, yeah. But anyway, it was very good for me, because I think I became aware of another kind of life here. You know, you can imagine a proud medical student when they walk out of the house and go toward the hospital, they're really happy and proud and so on. Well, imagine some of these people who don't look exactly male or female, somewhere in between, and dress in a way that most people think there shouldn't be anybody who looks like that. So the moment they go out of the house, they're like physically at risk, right? And they're encountering all sorts of things that, you know, the medical students never ever encounter. So I've experienced both of those kinds of things. And it was funny, 2019, you realize that's not just before COVID, but it is before. COVID was 2020. So we stopped doing this face-to-face open mic poetry for the young people, because of the fact that the person leading it was a really famous poet who had been like the poet laureate of Nigeria and so on. And we had some of the young people coming to those sessions so wired with drugs and stuff they could hardly speak. And one night she just sort of looked at the situation and said, "We're not going to do this anymore." So we stopped, and then a few months later, COVID happened. Most people assume that the poetry stopped because of COVID, but that's not the case. So anyway, this, I think, it is relevant because you're taking this course that's about speculative content, things that don't exist yet. There is no other course like that. When I began this, I thought there would be hundreds of courses, and you know, every university would have a course like this. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen. So you are also entering into a kind of rarefied space of experiences that most people don't have. And it has some entertaining facets. If you think of going to a party in the evening, it gets to be 10 p.m. and people can't talk about work anymore, and so nothing else to talk about. But you have the singularity, and what is that? Yeah, so anyway, and so this is me. You see how I sort of stick out like a sore thumb there? But at the Singularity University Executive course, I have kept in touch with those people. This is Ray Kurzweil, who is the chancellor of Singularity University and a very famous futurist honored by multiple US presidents and so on. You may hear people arguing with him, but you really need to consider all his books are reactions to criticism that he had received. So if you write to him with some sort of complaint, this singularity doesn't make any sense, blah, 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 you will learn something from him. He is reachable. He doesn't have like impenetrable security. He's not that famous. And you can actually interact with him. And I've had quite a few interactions. Okay, so now, for a while now, I'm going to use Marcus Hutter's slides from a PowerPoint called Can Intelligence Explode? That's really a question you never asked before. But, and we have a PowerPoint with built-in audio, him presenting this, but the difference is the colors on the slide are much darker. The subject matter, you'll see, gets kind of dark too. So I thought you need a version of this that's not quite as deeply depressing as the one from here. So anyway, the history, where did the singularity begin? In 1847, R. Thornton, the editor of the Expounder of Primitive Christianity, wrote about the recent invention of the four-function mechanical calculator. Such machines, by which the scholar may, by turning a crank, grind out the solution of a problem without the fatigue of mental application, would, by its introduction into schools, do incalculable injury. But who knows that such machines, when brought to greater perfection, may not think of a plan to remedy all their own defects and then grind out ideas beyond the ken of mortal mind. So when the course began in 2012, it seemed really crazy to talk about machines smarter than humans. But today, that doesn't seem crazy at all. So you can see the way the world has evolved in the past 14 years. It may interest you, how popular has this course ever been, right, during that period? Well, the first semester that it was a university course, only 2 people signed up. And I didn't know, I think in a lot of universities, if you have a course where only 2 people sign up, you're not allowed to continue with the course. But that's not true here, I found out. But it's still kind of embarrassing to run a course that has that few people. So we had these 2 people registered, and I got a bunch of my friends to come and sort of populate the seats. So it looked like we had somewhere between 5 and 7 students, but we actually only had 2. But during COVID, the course was massively popular because, of course, the medical students couldn't shadow senior physicians anymore. Nobody knew the rules and how the infectious disease was working and so on. So it was really hard for them to have learning experiences. So we had like 25 medical students taking the course every single term when COVID began. But now, as you may know, the course is maxed out at 13. We currently have 8 people registered. And the people you saw last time, some of them may fall into a category of being graduate students. Therefore, they didn't have to be interviewed by me they can just go into Bear Tracks and sign up. But they really may have no idea how unusual the subject matter of this course is. Like it's life-changing, like you may get so hooked that you want to keep doing things related to the course for the rest of your time here and so on. But on the other hand, there are people that just can't wrap their head around something like that. So it is quite possible that of the 8 registered students, they won't all stay, because some of them are just, they can't stand the kind of uniqueness of the course. Yeah. So, in 1863, 4 years after Darwin published On the Origin of the Species, Sam Butler published a letter captioned "Darwin Among the Machines." Compares human evolution to machine evolution, prophesizing half in jest that machines would eventually replace man in the supremacy of the earth. Course of the ages, we'll find ourselves the inferior race. The letter raises many of the themes now being debated by proponents of the technological singularity. And this is that article by Marcus Hutter, Can Intelligence Explode? As I said last time, if you talk to any computing scientist that you know about Marcus Hutter, they'll immediately tell you he's not one of us. So he sort of marches to the beat of a different drummer, but he also thinks about things like what the singularity will sound like, and he prepared these slides. So these are the people that have talked about the singularity in science fiction and other nonfiction books. Kurzweil looms quite large there. And Moore's law, price performance of computing over time, which predicts that at a certain point, machines will be smarter than individual humans and then smarter than the whole aggregate human race. And so this is the idea of artificial general intelligence and superintelligence. And you can kind of think back in your own life to 2014 when the book Superintelligence came out. It had a huge impact, but on a relatively small group of people, because most people thought, well, this has nothing to do with me, you know. And now in 2026, it seems like somehow it will have something to do with absolutely everybody. Superintelligence by Moore's law. Moore's law, computation doubles every 1.5 years. It's now been valid for more than 50 years. As long as there's demand for more computation, Moore's law could continue to hold for many more decades before computronium is reached. That's the idea of everything being computerized. Entire universe being computerized. In 20 to 30 years, the raw computing power of a single computer will reach 10 to 15, 10 to 16 flops. Computational capacity of the human brain is about at that level, and so software will not lag far behind. So human level AI in 20 to 30 years, or some people are talking about it in 2026 or 2028 or 2030. So it's strange but true that this course used to seem to have little to do with normal life. But you recognize now that it has a lot to do with normal life. And maybe as a consequence of taking this course, you'll be more prepared for the future than anyone who has not taken the course. So there are these various epochs, and you can see how slowly things changed in the beginning, and contrast that to how fast things are changing in the era of Moore's law. So is the singularity negotiable? Can we say, no, stop, we gotta go back. we can't have this. No, probably not really. It's like in a black hole, as you get closer and closer, you don't have the power to resist the pull of the black hole. It's sort of like that. It would be very hard now to stop AI's advance. I think at this institution, as in most universities, most of the input you get about AI is negative and like warnings to stay away from AI. So maybe this will be the most positive course you've ever taken about it and give you some ideas of how things could turn out really very well. Because think of all the human beings that you know, every single one, like you know the name of. Would you trust any one of them with stewardship of the earth, right? Planning what's going to happen with the earth in general? No, you wouldn't, because probably no individual human is capable of that. But AI probably would be capable, and particularly if it's an AI that had sort of grown up thinking about how to optimize the earth for human beings, and would know more about human happiness, human wants and needs, and sort of what would make us successful than even we know. And so having an AI in charge is a very likely outcome, but likely that AI will, in a sense, be working for us, even though it's much smarter than we are. So that's part of what this course is about. So Marcus Hutter and I had a phone call, only one, where he was so frustrated at my inability to understand this slide about the Library of Babel, which says if you had a library that contained all information, it would have no information value. And why is that? Well, because it would not only contain all properly printed books, but all improperly printed books and all sorts of mistakes and stuff. And that's as I now understand it. But I think the reason he got so upset with me not understanding is almost no student ever understands this slide. So when later on you're going through your notes and you come upon this slide, if you don't completely understand it well, then it just proves you're a member of the human race, I think. Either way, outsiders, when there is singularity, really can't witness a true intelligence singularity, but what it would look like from the point of view of the outsider is things are speeded up. But if you're taking part in it, everything else around you is speeded up to the same degree. So strict intelligence singularity is neither experienced by insiders nor by outsiders. So I didn't go on and on to give all the slides in that presentation. It doesn't really seem valuable. You can do it yourself. So what the second half of this then is about is raising your spirit, stimulating interest in the singularity through the idea of new holidays, Future Day, Longevity Day, Diversity Day. I must say Diversity Day is a bit more of a challenge now than it was when I first wrote this slide. You're probably aware, it's kind of a shocking thing that life expectancy of Canadians, for both men and women, has begun to dip down. There are many reasons for this. The fentanyl epidemic and COVID and so on. But we could certainly have more reason to celebrate longevity or to think about it than we used to. So this was our first Future Day in Edmonton. So you're now starting in your mind to predict the story I'm going to tell you. We started Future Day and it was small at the beginning, and then it grew, and just became massive. But somehow you know that's not true because you never heard of Future Day, right? So that isn't what happened. In 2012, we were one of a number of cities. So you'll notice Joel Crichton there. Yeah, the same guy who did the video at the beginning of today. So there were celebrations in these 16 cities, and every year since then there have been fewer. Some years it's just Sydney, Australia, and Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So this really is an idea that hasn't caught on very much, or has sort of gotten weaker with time rather than stronger. It's interesting to think about the reasons that might occur. And we have an idea. Yeah, I should have changed this slide state. But anyway, Julie Lin Wong, who is a person I met at Singularity University, is kind of intrigued with our art gallery of Alberta. And you know the Paris Salon from the 1800s, where all the great thinkers came together to sort of share thoughts. And thought we could do the same thing in Edmonton on Future Day, March 1st. But we have never actually made that happen. So I talked last time about the University of Alberta Club related to this course. Is currently inactive, but we could activate it again if you wanted to. And you may know the requirement for University Club is there has to be money in the bank. So what do you use the money for? For food and drink, for your after hours social events, and you can do things in the evening and the weekend. It's kind of interesting. Over the past 14 years of the course, sometimes when I talk about this, everybody in the room has other jobs and kids and family responsibilities, and they can't possibly imagine why you add something to your life as superficial as this. But other terms, we have done it. We have a guy who performs with a bullwhip. I know that doesn't sound very suitable for the university, and that's what I thought, but it actually works very well. He's a guy who went to law school. You probably know some people like this. Not everybody who goes to law school becomes a lawyer. Some take another path. So he went to law school, and so he has similar intellect to us. And he became a professional street performer, and yeah, he's a very entertaining guy. We could have him back, and he could entertain during the social events you plan, but you don't have to do this. It's not a mandatory part of the course, but it could be. Yeah. So the Big Bang Theory, I talked about this last time, how it talks about the same subjects as we have in this course. In fact, there was one episode on October 1st that was directly about the singularity, and was the Apple co-founder had a cameo in that episode. Okay, how else could we celebrate the future? Probably know the Holi festival from like the Indian subcontinent and so on. So, you know, it's really hard to get non-toxic colorful dyes. It's easy to find toxic ones. Yeah, so in India there's a tremendous amount of disease of eye, lung, skin that's related to these holy festival gatherings where they sprinkle the brightly colored toxic substances on each other. Here are some other things like this. Yeah.
Our high school had an event. It was kind of like that. It's called diversity, so it's Diversity Day, but we spelled it like dye, like dye. It was non-toxic. I think it was starch-based, right?
You can find all those colors that are non-toxic substances and don't give you lung disease and skin disease, but those are much more costly than the ones you easily find. So we do something like that, and you know, in Canada there's something Color Me Rad, which is sort of like this, and so on. Yeah, there's another thing we could do. There's this Crayola Bomb poem that for a long time was the only poem that I had written that was on my Facebook page. Maybe we should develop a Crayola bomb as our next secret weapon. Happiness weapon, a beauty bomb, and everything, every time a crisis developed, we would launch one. We would explode high in the air, explode softly, and send thousands, millions of little parachutes into the air, floating down to earth. A box of Crayolas wouldn't go cheap either. Boxes of 64 with a sharpener built right in, with silver and gold and copper and magenta and peach and lime and amber and umber and all the rest. And people would smile, get a funny look on their faces, and cover the world with imagination. Or if that doesn't do it for you, you can have a Roomba vacuum cleaner and do a time lapse. That gives you a colorful still image, time lapse art. And if you've got lots of resources, you could have a hot air balloon festival for March 1st. Might be a bit chilly, but yeah. That would have a similar appearance. You have to watch the high tension wires and, you know, balloons catching on fire and stuff. It's not as easy as you might think. You can have poetry and music like the windmills of your mind, round like a circle and a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning. Ever spinning reel like a snowball down a mountain. Carnival balloon like a carousel that's turning, running rings around the moon. Like a clock whose hands are sweeping past the minutes of its face. Whirls like an apple whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind. You may know the bridge, the high-level bridge has a Light the Bridge initiative. It's a lot like Future Day in that it's not very successful. As you drive toward the entrance to the high-level bridge, there's a little sign that tells you who's sponsoring the lights for that evening. And usually it has no sponsor. So they just do random lights because nobody, but we sponsored an evening with orange and green being the colors of this course from the picture of me that was in the Edmonton Journal. Yeah, that picture. So we had colors like that. Yeah, that was 2013. An article about the course that's in the permanent archive of the Edmonton Journal, so you can still read it. Yeah. So believe it or not, this is the last slide. Sort of similar to the last slide last time. But so you could help us think about more ways to promote what we're doing in this course, promote the idea of positive outcome with co-evolution of humans and AI. And yeah. One new thing that I mentioned last time, this really caught me by surprise, I must say. You can think of people, very famous people like Michelangelo and Steve Jobs and so on, who have been good at many different things. We call those people polymaths, and you immediately think, well, that's genetic. And so I didn't get it, and so I can't be a polymath. But believe it or not, in 1998, which is 28 years ago, there was a book written saying you can teach yourself to be a polymath. Just look at the way, you know, Michelangelo broke up his day and how he did things. You do the same and you can be a polymath just like you. There isn't any proof, but the interesting thing is that in the past 3 or 4 days, there have been videos that take this idea quite seriously. And if it is even a little bit true, then it gives us hope for something else. Probably many of you realize that AI can already do most of the really clever and interesting things you're able to do. And every day that's more and more true. Like the things that AI, you can do that AI can't do today, but tomorrow there'll be fewer and so on. But there are not polymath AIs yet. There will be, we think, in 2028 to 2030. And that's where the really big discoveries will occur. Just off the wall positive things that we never even imagined. So if we have an Einstein-like AI that can discover these big things, but we don't have that yet. So if what these videos are saying is really true, that you can train yourself to be one of these polymaths like Michelangelo, you've got at least 3 years where you could be doing all sorts of cool stuff that AI can't do yet. AI will eventually catch up, of course, but those might be a very fun 3 years. And even if the idea is completely wrong, it's conceptually interesting, I think, because there probably is a little bit of truth there, that if you compare you with your genetics and Michelangelo with his, you're not even considering that you could have the impact on the world that he had, but maybe you could, you know? And if you thought this 1998 book was true, then you every day say, well, okay, so I should be working on these different things that most people don't think are connected at all, and trying to become good at them all, and yeah, spend certain amounts of time doing that. Yeah. So anyway, that's new. You'll find that there's virtually no videos or much written about it. That book, hardly anybody read it, I think. But now, suddenly, in the past few days, people are talking about this. So that's also interesting. So I think this is, yeah, oh, this, that's right. You may wonder the strange influence that Marcus Hutter has over this course, but he insisted if we were going to show those slides, that I had to give the formal reference for where that comes from. So that's what this is, the people who brought those ideas to you. Okay, so that's the end of things today. Now, I don't know how you feel about celebrity or whether you enjoy meeting famous people, but in a sense you are going to meet them in this course. But since the status of some of those people is changing, I'm not sure exactly whether you're going to meet them face to face or just on video. So the schedule I gave you on the first day said that Shauna Panja is teaching next week, but she's not, because she's in New York City for some major events there. Many students in the course start following her and keep following her after the course, because she's doing amazing things. She's going to space with Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin toward the end of 2026, so this current year. And she has been teaching in the course up until now, and I think she may still teach the course this term, but I became quite confident that she's not going to be in town next week. So Jack Tazinski, who's kind of famous in his own way and has some famous books and so on, he's quite excited about teaching you about quantum biology. He has 4 lectures on that. You get 2 of them next week and 2 later in the term. And he, rather than you thinking that maybe he's not very enthusiastic about meeting you, it's exactly the opposite. He's at a point where he needs student input for a bunch of things that he's doing, so he's really interested in what young, normal humans like you think about things. Yeah, so you will be talking with him about that in this very room next week. Yeah. Also, there is one of the founders of transhumanism, who David Pierce. He has taught in this course most terms, and when I realized Shauna wasn't going to teach next week, I asked him whether he could teach, and he's flying all over Europe, and it's not practical right now, but he also may teach later on. Yeah, so I wanted you to understand that as exciting as the current lecture schedule currently is, it may get even better depending upon how things turn out. Yeah, and I'm always looking to morph and change the course, because the course about the future that stays the same isn't valid, you know? You gotta keep changing things up. So we are going to do that. Okay, so do you have any questions? Or I mean, there can be questions about what I've just presented, or questions about the course in general. Yeah, anything. So, one of the things I should also tell you, I don't know if this will put the fear of God into you or whatever. If Shauna does teach, she is very keen on trying out the old-fashioned idea of the oral exam. What do we do in the era of AI? And she has the idea, I don't know if we'd even count the grades, but just for her to try, like meeting for 5 minutes with each of you, asking you questions and grading that. So it's not a formal part of the course. If it doesn't work out, we wouldn't. I mean, there are lots of things like that we try. But I know if she does teach, she is enthusiastic about that. Meeting an astronaut, physician, you know, it is a pretty exciting thing. So it's not bad for you, and even if you don't really excel at answering her questions, I think it could still be a positive thing overall. But I don't know that it's going to happen. I know it will happen sometime, but it may not be with this class. Also, thinking of unexpected things, if you have an unexpected thing that now that you learned about the course, you'd like to suggest that we add something else, there is certainly the possibility of doing that. A lot of the changes that we have made, well, they've come from multiple sources. We did international peer review in the beginning. We sent videos from the course to famous people around the world. How would you make this better? And what they said about quantum biology, we used to have one quantum biology lecture, amazingly dense, 80 minutes, and just packed with indecipherable information that only the lecturer could possibly understand. Yeah. So the international peer review guys said, no, you need 4 lectures on that subject and decompress it a little bit so there's less stuff per minute per slide and so on. So that's what we ended up with, and that's why we have 4 quantum biology lectures. Yeah. And there are other sort of strange things about the course, like the fact that it is potentially open to the general public. So if you have a friend that you'd like to bring, or someone you'd like to, they don't have to be actually formally signed up for the course in order to come here. They can just show up. So, any other questions? So what is the personal impact of having your face be the profile for that last teaching session? Did I do something terribly negative or positive, or?
I have no idea. I walked in here expecting more people.
Anyway, yeah, no. The reason I did that is that I thought it's a way to encourage people to not just start watching at the beginning and then get bored and quit, which is what most people do when they watch videos, but realize that for that particular one, watching the student part is more interesting. By putting your picture in there, it improves the chances that they'll actually go to the later part of the video. So that's why I did that. Yeah, okay. So are you understanding things thus far, or do you really not have a clue what we're trying to do in the course?
It's like really chaotic right now. Like it's like a really inexperienced course material. It's like really new.
Yes. Yeah, but
yeah.
Don't you think that that's good? That, I mean, by the end, you'll know something kind of unique and important that other people around you don't know, and maybe you'll be future leader, So, yeah.
And I think it'll make a lot more sense once you're more in the course, because in the beginning you are going to be like, what is this? What is singularity? I remember when I took the course, I had to go home and I spent 40 minutes Googling singularity because I don't get it. What is singularity? It was Solez would talk about singularity it was his child. He's I love singularity. And I'm what is singularity? Why is he so passionate about it? And it took me so long to understand this concept of singularity because it's so complex. It took me a while to understand it, but it's once you go through the course, then it's all this chaotic, crazy, it all kind of comes together and it makes sense. It's just
And the other thing about it, there's a video this week that says that it's already started. The singularity's here, it's now. Yeah, I'm not saying that, but yeah, so Patrick Pilarski, who gave the last AI lecture for last term, you'll notice that the profile slide on that is very sharply uplifted arrows. The technology is going straight up. And that's basically what he said, that he's like an accelerationist in his philosophy about where the future's going. Yeah. So you can watch that if you want, and he'll be back this term to talk about that more. Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking to have this be similar to anything else you've ever done or seen. I'm trying to keep you sort of intrigued and surprised, I don't want all the surprises to be at the beginning, they might as well just continue throughout the course. Why not? Yeah. So the other thing to realize is the other things we teach in the course, even though there's no other course like this, there are other courses that teach the subject matter, except what you're getting next week. That everybody seems to be afraid of quantum biology. I mean, it's sort of a step beyond AI, right? A lot of things, I mean, it's seeming like AI can solve a lot of things we thought required quantum. Like when the course began, we talked about protein folding and how immensely complicated it was, how obviously quantum algorithms were going to be required to understand protein folding. But that was not true. You know, AlphaFold has nothing to do with quantum. But there'll be other things where AI actually can't solve it now, but AI plus quantum can. So it's really a step above, and it's very interesting from that point of view. And when most people think about it, they think, oh, I don't know, you know, I mean, like quantum mechanics is, we don't test you on any of the formulas, you don't have to calculate anything, you know. It's like, no, it's just kind of broad brush, you know. It's like poets' physics or whatever you want to say. So it's not, you know, difficult in terms of what we're requiring you to know. And you see a lot of formulas and stuff, but you don't have to use them. So that's how that will go. And Jack is writing books with very popular authors for the general public. So by its very nature, it's a lot easier to understand than you might think. So I think that's what you'll find. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So are you feeling deep regret for what you got into, or you think it might be fun? I think it might be fun. I would encourage you, if you want, because some of you know each other, to go back and look at the videos from 2013, because a bunch of those students knew each other. There was a couple there that they've now been married for, I don't know, 12 years and so on. So, and it turned out very well. There was a student in 2013 who gave a presentation about brain-computer interfaces. And I think she had never given a major presentation before. And so she began very shy. And you can watch her in the video sort of come out of the shyness. It's really kind of an amazing thing. So she then got into medical school here, and it is now out in rural practice in southern parts of the province. And she shows horses too, so she has a balanced life, medicine, horses, yeah. So anyway, but you can look at all those people, and they were approximately your age, interacting with each other and so on from 2013. I think you might enjoy that. So. Okay, any other questions? No? Yeah.
You need to get into medical school.
So, you know, one of the things you can think about is why there aren't more courses like this. And I guess one is that when I realized there were only 2 students taking it, I didn't give up. I think most people would have, right? Well, I had this course, but I tried it and only 2 people signed up. And yeah, I found a way to make it work, and yeah. So that's what happened, yeah. So maybe the natural outcome would have been a failed course. Yeah.
Well, I think, well, since this isn't like a required course,
No, it isn't.
like a lot of people come in here, like the average student is gonna come here thinking it's like an easy course, or like it's gonna be like a mark booster, and then they come in here, like take that first lecture, and then there's all that content they like haven't experienced before, and they're like, oh, like, I thought this was an easy class, and then they're just gonna drop it.
I don't think it's as simple as that, because it's a graduate course, so if everybody's does well, they can all get A's. It doesn't have to be, there's no curving. It's not like one of you has to be at the bottom, in the middle of the time. No, it's not like that. I mean, there's some terms where the person who's really upset with their grade is the one who got an A, because the others got an A plus and they only got an A, and they're so upset, Yeah. So anyway, so it is the reason that it's easy isn't that it's easy, but that every part of it is so intriguing, and that includes the other students. Like the students in here now who don't know each other, when you get to know the other students, you'll find that, okay, what brought the students here, it's kind of like a filter. Most normal humans could care less about the long-range future. They're sort of like politicians. They care about maybe the next 3 or 4 years, hardly anything. So to actually care about the long-range future is unusual, and at least subconsciously, you fit in that category or you wouldn't be here. So it's like a filter for people with that specialized interest of sort of thinking about where humanity is going and how to make that better and stuff. So it's not just the people lecturing, it's the people sitting in the seats beside you and the interaction with them, and then the fact that we have these other things like, the future and all that jazz with poetry and music and stuff, because some students get hooked, and so they want something all the time, and the summer's too long, so that's why we created the future and all that jazz as another thing that they could be involved in. And yeah, we've performed around the world and stuff like that. We have a new album coming out this coming June. Yeah, so anyway, thank you for being here. And I mean, what will happen with student numbers is, I think, unknown, but it's in your hands to some extent. If you enjoy it and you tell others, there may be others who sign up. On the other hand, as I said, some of the existing 8 may look at you guys and say, I could never compete with that. I'm never coming back. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Yes?
Why did you start teaching the course? Way back, I guess.
Yeah. So in 2010, in the spring of 2010, I took the Singularity University course. And as I described, it was quite inspiring and it kept growing, right? So I thought that there should be a course like that in every university. And I kept running off about this, and I wasn't getting any takers in terms of other people to start a university course. So I looked in the mirror one morning and thought, maybe that person you're looking for is you, Kim Solez, Yeah. So, so that's how I started. But there's some other things that occurred before then, like, I don't know if you know Leonard Cohen, most famous poet, singer, songwriter in Canada. So he and I met in November 2005 over a 3-day weekend. I was very frightened about this encounter. I thought he would quickly discover what a boring human being I am and give me the bum's rush and so on. But it was exactly the opposite. He was endlessly fascinated with what doctors do and what standard setting in medicine might be. So we talked endlessly about the BAMP classification that I started back in 1991 of transplant pathology. And when I mentioned borderline changes to him, he was just fascinated because that seemed to resonate a lot of things going on in his life. So when I left, he sat at his kitchen table, wrote this lyric that became the song Treaty on the final album. But when he wrote the lyric the first time, it had borderline in it 5 times. Well, this is the reason there are multiple drafts of good songs, because often the first draft is just awful. So it was really not very much fun to read with those 5 borderlines, but over the next 10 years, he got rid of all but one of the borderlines. So, as you may know, he died in 2016. There was a memorial service in 2017. Big oversized program at the Bell Center in Montreal. I'm sitting there, and it's only 2 pages out of his notebooks. He had hundreds of notebooks, so there would be thousands of pages. And those were the pages that reflected the impact of my visit and this lyric that had borderline 5 times. So I thought, well, maybe every program's different, right? And they just randomly put in pages, but I looked around and no, everybody had the same. And before he died, he met with Dance Montreal about their performance of his songs. And he insisted that Treaty String Reprise always be the last song performed. So that's the one that has the word borderline retained in it. And so I think the reason he was so fascinated with me, why he was such a good poet, is that he spent, and some of you may be like this, endless time worrying about things that don't need to be worried about, right? He had this inner critic always bad-mouthing him, oh, you can't do this, you can't do blah, 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 blah. And maybe you have that too. So I don't have any of that sort of inner peace, you know. And he was just amazing, amazed at the difference between us, that he was like, at some level, constantly worrying about things, and my neuroticism is like 0 on a personality test. The amount of time I spend worrying about things that don't need to be worried about is 0. My openness to experience is sky high, yeah. So something about that worked for him, and so I think some experiences like that in life of having famous people sort of be intrigued with attributes of how your mind functions gave me some confidence that maybe it would be worth persisting in the course, even if only 2 students had signed up. So, you know, that year with the 2 students, I had put an ad in the newspaper that they give out on the LRT. I don't even think they do that anymore, but they used to. You would enter the LRT and read this newspaper. So on one day, I had an ad for the course. That ad cost $520. And on the same day, a student called me to sign up for the course, one of the 2 who signed up. And I wonder if I'm going to have to pay $520 for every student from now on. It'd be an expensive course. Yeah, but that isn't how things turned out. But that was how it was the first term. So that's a longer answer maybe than you expected. But, yeah. So, yeah, I think the other things that you'll learn in this course maybe have to do with the courage to do things that other people wouldn't do. Like if you're a physician and you may believe that you should be making money every moment of your waking life, right? So you wake up in the morning and can you hear that cash register in your mind? Ka-chung, ka-chung, so you're making money. If you go somewhere where there are no patients in the audience and no other physicians, then the cash register sound stops, right? And a lot of ordinary physicians would say, I've done something so stupid, I should have never come here. Why did I end up in a meeting where there are no other physicians? But if you begin to enjoy it, you realize you can have amazing conversations and learn all sorts of things no other physicians are learning. So there was a poverty simulation exercise here in town, and I thought this would be good for me. And this is a really kind of upsetting story. It's short though. So I went there and I pretended to be an impoverished person, and I was kind of proud of how it went. I kept my home, and like a lot of other people, the outcomes were worse for them than they were for me, so I did pretty well. And I came back to the hospital all excited about this experience. And all my colleagues thought I had just wasted 3 hours of my life doing the stupidest thing they ever heard of. When they got into medical school, they realized they would never have to worry about being impoverished again, and they never thought about it again, and they never will, you know? So that's just a different, but no, I'm still, I feel that I'm a better person having had that experience. I mean, you learn things like government offices are closed at noon. So if you have something crucial to your life, you have to do it in a government office. You don't have your own car, you take the bus, you get there at noon. You can't do it because the office is closed, right? So a lot of simple things like that, yeah. And I'm proud to learn that. Just as I said earlier on, I was proud to have learned that I should never offer a ride home to one of those people in the at-risk youth poetry. Yeah. So, there you go, eh? Okay, well, I've probably given you something to think about and talk about, and there'll be more of that. Yeah. So, as I said last time, I'm working on projects that, depending upon how things go, you may be interested in learning about the kind of day-to-day progress. When I learned this thing about you can teach yourself to be a polymath, even if your mother believes you're the stupidest child she ever had, you can still teach yourself to be a polymath. I don't know if I believe that, but yeah. So I'm writing, there many medical meetings have this late-breaking abstract provision where there's an abstract deadline. You have to get in your abstracts certain deadline. But if you get something really exciting after that, I think this fits in that category. So I'm going to write a late-breaking abstract about that and how that kind of changes what's possible in the world in all sorts of ways, and is important to think about even if it's absolutely wrong. There are probably other things like that, surprising ideas that you can learn something from, even if that idea turns out to be absolutely false, it's still fun to think about what it would have meant if it was true. Yeah, so I don't expect all four of you now are gonna go home and read up about Michelangelo and say, well, how did Michelangelo approach supper and how did he brush his teeth and all this kind of thing, and start following his life pattern. But if you do, that's also cool. So, yeah. Okay, so we'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Okay, thanks.